Welcome back to the Worldtellers podcast. I am Brett, your only host this week. I'm usually joined by my good buddies Finn, Jonathan, and Josiah, but since tomorrow is Thanksgiving, we decided to take the week off as a group. But since we have been recording every week since February, I did want to hop on here and record a quick episode, keep our streak alive. And I really felt like the Lord wanted me to just hop on here and share a real quick word with you. But like I said, we've been doing this since February. We recorded our first episode February 9th. I unfortunately didn't hit the button so that our software would pick up the audio, so nobody's ever going to hear that first episode. So we came back 2 days later, February 11th, and recorded our first episode, legitimate episode, and we've had one recorded every week since then, so I wanted to keep the streak alive. And so I say all that because I threw out this idea of the podcast to Finn and Jonathan and Josiah one day in January. I think it was January, maybe the early part of February, and they hopped on board. And they've been, they've been with it ever since. I recorded one other episode by myself because Finn and Jonathan, I think they were out of town, and Josiah had just had two newborn twins. And so apart from that, it's been a pretty consistent, every Thursday we show up at 5:30. We'll chat for about 45 minutes to an hour. We don't always agree on everything, but we have, discussions with brotherly love, and then hop on and record. And it's been a lot of fun, and I hope that we get to do it for a long time, because it's always encouraging to me. They do most of the talking on the podcast, Josiah especially. Just kidding, buddy. But they've been, so I've been friends with them for probably about closing in on 3 years. I've been friends with Finn a little bit longer, and all three of them have been very influential in my walk with the Lord over the last 3 years. So I've mentioned it several times on the podcast, but my brother passed away at the end of June after a battle with cancer. And watching his faith in Jesus Christ, and his endurance through a suffering and a terrible disease that he had to battle was such an encouragement to me. And he passed away at the end of June, and so I lost a brother. But with Finn and Jonathan and Josiah, it really does feel like I've gained three brothers. They mean a lot to me. My wife and my daughter, we all love them. We all love their families. They've meant a lot to my walk with the Lord. They were there for me and my family. When we did lose my brother. And so I just wanted to say how grateful and thankful I am to them. And I know Josiah's probably got tears in his eyes whenever he does listen to this, but I really mean that. And since they aren't here to record with me this week, I just wanted to get that out there. But I was going to take this week off with them, but I really felt like the Lord was wanting me to just share a little short message about, given that it's Thanksgiving, of thankfulness and being grateful. And there's a couple passages that I wanted to talk about. The first is in 1 Thessalonians 5, verses 16 through 18. It says, "Rejoice always, pray without ceasing, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you." The other passage is in Habakkuk 3, verses 17 through 19. It says, "Though the fig tree should not blossom, nor fruit be on the vines, the produce of the olive fail, and the fields yield no food, the flock be cut off from the fold, and there be no herd in the stalls, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will take joy in the God of my salvation. God, the Lord, is my strength. He makes my feet like the deer's. He makes me tread on my high places." Especially that passage in Habakkuk has been, I was in Habakkuk probably a couple months ago. And it had been a while since I had kind of been, Habakkuk's one of what they call the minor prophets. And it had been a while since I had been in any of those books. And I just came across that part there in chapter 3, and and I was just like, man, how amazing is it that, you can have, our circumstances can be so bad, and yet we can rejoice in the Lord. As it talks about in the other passage that I read in 1 Thessalonians 5, says, "Rejoice always, pray without ceasing, and give thanks in all circumstances." And you're probably thinking, how in the world can I give thanks in all circumstances? Look at everything that's going on in my life. Look at all of the things going wrong in my life. Look at all of the loss I have experienced. Look at all of the pain I have going on. And it's like, man, I think there's a lot of times, especially in my life, where my thankfulness, my praise, my worship has been based on my circumstances. And when it is, it's almost impossible to be able to give thanks in all circumstances, because your thankfulness is being tied to other things other than God. If your circumstances can change, why should our thankfulness be tied to those things? Our thankfulness and our praise and our worship and our rejoicing should be tied to God, should be tied to who He is. God never changes. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. And if He never changes, then our rejoicing and our thankfulness and our worship and our praise for Him should never change. It should be constant. And so whenever we are facing difficult times, whenever we are facing trials and sufferings, it doesn't really matter, because that's not where our rejoicing and our joy and our hope and our thankfulness and our greatness and our gratefulness is tied to. It's tied to who God is. And on the flip side, it's true too. If we are having times of prosperity, if we are having times where everything seems to be going right, that's also not where our thankfulness and our joy and our rejoicing is wrapped up in, because of those things can change just as fast as the other stuff. And so I've seen it in my own life. I've experienced it in my own life when, things may be going well. In my opinion, I think that's when it's, when prosperous times are, in my opinion, the most dangerous because, it's very easy to think that everything's going fine, so I don't need God now. And so I'm not saying that the opposite isn't true, but it's easier to forget God when you feel like you don't need God anymore. And so that's definitely, a danger. And so I just wanted to just encourage anyone who may tune in and listen to this podcast. I do apologize if you can hear my dog licking his paws. I started out recording in the kitchen since my wife and my daughter this is Wednesday before Thanksgiving. My wife and my daughter are starting a new tradition to go over to her mom's to do a sleepover before Thanksgiving and kind of start cooking and stuff. So it's just me and my 15-year-old dog here. I started in the kitchen recording the episode. My dog is walking all over the place. So we moved in here to the living room. I'm sitting on the couch and my dog is now licking his paws. So I apologize if you can hear it, but I did want to just hop on here, and record a quick episode and just, encourage you to, be thankful. Yes, we are thankful for everything that God blesses us with. We're thankful for our families. We're thankful for our health. We're thankful for all of the blessings that God gives us. But please, please, please let it be tied not to your circumstances. Your circumstances change every single day. But let it be tied to God and who He is, because He never changes. And I want to be tied to the Lord, a rock who never changes. My circumstances change every single day. My circumstances change every week, every month, every year. If that's what I'm clinging to, it's going to be a roller coaster. If that's what I'm clinging to, I'm never really going to have joy. I'm never really going to have peace. I'm never really going to be thankful. I'm only going to be thankful when things are going well. But if all of those things are tied to God and who He is, He never changes. I mean, how encouraging is it to know that my hope, my joy, my peace, my patience, my everything, my thankfulness, my gratefulness, it's all tied to who God is, and He never changes. And so I just wanted to hop on here real quick and encourage anybody who might be struggling to find something to be thankful for. I think thankfulness is, you can always be thankful if you have Christ, because you have all you need. The person who has everything that the world offers and doesn't have Christ really has nothing. But the person who has nothing in the eyes of the world but has Christ has everything. I recently saw a meme on Facebook or Instagram, but it was somebody was walking out of, I don't know what it was, maybe a yard sale or something, and it was like a cartoon meme, but they had all of these different things, and they were labeled like I can't really remember, but they were trying to carry everything. They couldn't even carry it. But this other person was walking out with only one thing, and it was labeled Jesus. And the person with everything said, "That's all you need?" It's like, yeah, that's all I need. It talks about, Paul talks about this in Philippians 4. Let me get to it real quick. Talking about, probably one of the most out of context passages taken out of context. But Philippians 4, I'll start in verse 10, says, "I rejoiced in the Lord greatly, that now at length you have revived your concern for me. You were indeed concerned for me, but you had no opportunity. Not that I am speaking of being in need, for I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. I can do all things through him who strengthens me." It doesn't matter if I have a lot or if I have a little. If I have Christ, it is enough. It is all I need. It is everything. And I hope that's an encouragement to you. And I hope that if you do have a relationship with Jesus, I hope that this encourages you to understand that he's the most prized treasure that you could ever have. And I hope that it encourages you to want to go deeper in your relationship with him, to want to walk closer with him. If you happen to stumble upon this podcast and you don't know Jesus, you don't have a relationship with him, I hope this encourages you to repent and turn to him and to put your faith and your hope and your trust in him, because he is all that you need. And so that's it. That's all I've got. We usually record an hour-long episode. All I've got is about 17 minutes. So, like I said, I'm grateful to be able to do this podcast. I'm grateful that the Lord put this in front of me to do. And I'm grateful that I've got 3 brothers to do this with. I'm thankful for everybody who has tuned in and listened. We very much appreciate it. We hope that it is an encouragement to you. I hope that it is honoring and glorifying to the Lord. And I just thank you so much for tuning in. And make sure. So I always do a terrible job of doing the intros and mentioning anything about subscribing to our YouTube channel. But make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you'll get notified of when we upload a new podcast, which we do every week, every Thursday. I try to release them around 7 o'clock Thursday night. But yeah, go on YouTube, subscribe. And man, we appreciate it very much for you two guys tuning in. And as my brother Finn says, till next time.